officials investigated near a red vehicle believed to have been driven by the suspect in Round Rock, Tex, on Wednesday. Jay Janner, Austin American-Statesman. Round Rock, Tex. It was not much surveillance footage in and near an Austin area FedEx store showing a man in a disguise dropping off packages. But for the cadre of investigators from the FBI, and other local, state and federal agencies who had been hunting a mysterious and prolific bomb maker, it was what they needed, their first big break. Up to that point in a 2-week investigation, officials had never laid eyes on the man they believed was responsible for terrorizing the Texas Capitol since March 2. In the security footage, a red 2002 Ford Ranger could be seen, officials said. Because the authorities did not have a license plate number, they began combing through records, all of them, for every vehicle with the same make and model in Texas. Investigators then began trying to match the records with a white male, possibly in his 20s. And there was another, more unorthodox clue from the surveillance video: the suspect's hands. He was wearing pink construction gloves. Investigators determined the same type of gloves were available at Home Depot, and they began going through hours of surveillance video from Home Depot locations in and around Austin. They got a hit. Security video from one store appeared to show the same suspect. Officials had now whittled down the number of potential license plates and began tailing a handful of people. One of them turned out to be Mark Condit, the man that the authorities now believe was the Austin serial bomber. Law enforcement responded to an area of Round Rock, Tex, where the police say a bombing suspect blew himself up in his vehicle. To Mia Khalifa for the New York Times, in a matter of hours, Mr. Condit's bombing spree, as well as his life, would be over. As SWAT officers closed in, Mr. Condit, a 23-year-old man from the Austin suburbs with no criminal record, ignited one of his homemade devices from inside his vehicle early Wednesday and killed himself before he could be apprehended. The dramatic and deadly trail of homemade explosions that left 2 people dead and injured 4 others ended in a ditch off Interstate 35 in Round Rock, with the windows of his vehicle blown out and his motive as unknown as ever. In the hours after Mr. Condit's death, a portrait of the bomber, his bombs and his techniques emerged, along with the story of how he was finally stopped. The lucky breaks, investigative ingenuity and technology that helped catch one of the most elusive serial bombers in recent decades. At the end of the day, Wednesday, police had another tool, a 25-minute confession, left on the suspect's phone, in which he attempted to describe his odyssey. It is the outcry of a very challenged young man talking about challenges in his personal life that led him to this point, the Austin Police Chief, Brian Manley, said. Interviews with political leaders briefed on the inquiry, along with briefings from investigators and a federal law enforcement source, shed light on an investigation that saw hundreds of federal agents descend on Austin, gathering and reconstructing bomb fragments, interviewing witnesses and gathering video footage. "We haven't seen an effort like this in many years," said Christopher H. Combs, special agent in charge of the FBI's office in San Antonio. Officials said Mr. Condit planted one bomb in the upscale Travis Country neighborhood of Austin on Sunday, and tied the bomb's tripwire to a "Caution, Children at Play" sign, which he himself put next to the sidewalk and that he bought, along with 4 others, at Home Depot. Investigators used his cell phone data to put him at the scene of explosions in Austin and also got his Google search history. But officials said the crucial first break came when Mr. Condit mailed the packages at the FedEx store earlier this week. Representative Michael McCall, Republican of Texas, said that when Mr. Condit left the FedEx office, he got into pickup that had been called in by others as potential leads. And then they got the license plate and from there were able to get the cell phone number, he said, adding that from there, agents could track the cell phone directly, as a location device. Mr. Condit's suicide left more questions than answers about who he was, how he became a bomb maker and why he did it. But Chief Manley seemed to assuage worries about more bombs when he said all 7 had been accounted for. Law enforcement officials had worried that Mr. Condit might have placed or sent additional bombs in the hours before he died. And officials said they were still looking into whether Mr. Condit had any accomplices. In the Austin suburb of Pflugerville, where Mr. Condit grew up and lived, a steady fear persisted throughout the day, even after his death. Neighbors were forced to evacuate from the area surrounding the house Mr. Condit shared with 2 roommates after investigators found explosive materials there. They were allowed to return late in the day. The Austin police said they had questioned Mr. Condit's two roommates. One had been released, the other was still being questioned as of Wednesday afternoon. Neither roommate was identified. Outside Mr. Condit's parents' home in Pflugerville, Detective David Fugit with the Austin police said Mr. Condit's family was cooperating and was allowing investigators to search the property, including several backyard sheds. We don't have any information to believe that the family had any knowledge of these events, Detective Fugit said. Investigators the scene in Round Rock, just north of Austin.